Cinco, eh?
Un segon, un segon. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elsa Pastor. I'm an associate professor at the Technical University of Catalunya, and I am the coordinator of the WUIVIEW project. For those of you who might not be aware of what the WUIVIEW project is, just let me tell you that it is an European action funded by the European Civil Protection and Humanitarian Aid Operation Agency, the DG ECHO for short. And our aim is to study the vulnerabilities at property scale in case of WUI fires and provide the community with methods and tools for the standard assessment of these vulnerabilities, right? So we've been performing fire tests and complex simulation activities during these last 2 years now. So it's time to disseminate our results and discuss how those can be applied and can be upscaled. So one of the dissemination efforts, which is very convenient in these strange times that we are living in, is a webinar series that will be conducted during 3 weeks in a row, starting today, as you see here in my screen. So the idea of this activity is first to provide a bit of context, highlighting the firefighting challenges that our agencies are experiencing when attacking forest fires, particularly at our scale of interest, which is the homeowner scale, the property scale. And following, we will present the prevention planning and the protection strategies that we have been developing under the framework of the WUIVIEW project. So today, as I said, we will be discussing on firefighting operations in complex scenarios like those of WUI fires, where firefighters have to respond simultaneously to wildfire suppression, to community evacuation, and to structures protection. So those are very demanding scenarios, very overwhelming scenarios in most of the cases. And to do so, we have invited Edgar Nebot. Edgar is the fire officer and deputy inspector of the Catalan Fire and Rescue Service. And Edgar has been involved as a fire officer in more than 30 big fires and around 150 middle-sized fires. So he's a strategic and tactical fire analyst, and he is the regional coordinator of prevention activities at the fire department in Girona's region, planning prescribed fires and participating in prevention plans. So among his responsibilities, Edgar is incident commander at regional level and operations chief in tactical fires. So he has a wealth of knowledge and experience, and sure he will provide us with important messages and lessons learned in these type of scenarios. Thanks, Edgar, for being here today and for accepting the invitation of the WUIVIEW consortium. Edgar will give us a talk, making use of a PowerPoint presentation, and that will be displayed and visible through the YouTube channel. And for those of you following the webinar, please feel free to write your comments and write your questions. And after Edgar's presentation, I'll make sure to take those questions to Edgar in our Q&A session that will be following after Edgar's presentation. So welcome, Edgar. Thanks again. And the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Elsa. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, first of all, I'm sorry because my English fluent is not as good as I would like, but I'll do my best. And if there is any question that you would like to answer, please use the chat. I think that Elsa has already explained, and we will try to solve any doubt that we could have. I will share my screen now. Elsa, is it right? Yeah?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Then, okay. Then, well, I hope you can see well my screen. This is a short presentation. There are a lot of image, of course, because at this time of the afternoon is good have good image. There are no videos, but well, at the end I feel a lot of what we are dealing on with the challenges in our fire and rescue service that covers these kind of emergencies, and I'll try to put in a structured way to facilitate the comprehension and well and giving a good answer to your questions about this issue. We will move through firstly understand the real problem that we have in face and in front of us, and then I will talk a little with the main developments that we are working on. And just to understand the real situation that we have in front, well, it's a landscape issue. Fire has a natural role in our ecosystems in the Mediterranean areas, and our urban deployment has made a problem. And we have to deal with this problem because at the end, the impacts of this misunderstanding between nature and human deployment on the land, well, is creating a severity of impacts and deaths. And this is something that we have to solve. Um, I would like to mention some publications, some reports coming from most of them from European projects that give us the opportunity to write our operational knowledge and our lessons learned. And the first of all is the Fire Paradox project, where the fire types concept is a concept that give us a good way to explain and to share with our colleagues and with our communities and with our policymakers, which is the real problem that we have in front of us. Then there are two fire generations that can explain the complex situation of these scenarios. The first one is the fourth fire generation that is focused on these large wildfires crossing the wildland urban interfaces, the WUIs, these communities. And obviously here, this kind of situation create a very difficult emergency scenario to manage. And then here we have some measures from the preventive and from the suppression point of view, and it's useful to understand which are your challenges and which could be your solutions on your landscapes. And the second one is the fifth fire generation concept that is talking about the simultaneously, not only simultaneously in extreme wildfires, not also large fires crossing wildland urban interface. So, as we have seen in a lot of places in Europe, also in US, also in South Africa, also in Chile, also in a lot of regions of our world in Australia. Then here there was on 2011 there was therefore the first step trying to build a common sense of this problem from the end user, from the first responders point of view. Nowadays, we are working in the fighting project, and one of the outputs of this project is try to um, define some different scenarios and which kind of capability challenges are in front of our emergency services. And then from those definitions that are in work and in this project, we can find some solutions to our current problems. Then from this approach, I select the low frequency and high impact events because some of the challenges are perfectly applied on our WUI scenarios. And, and from Catalonia, we are working with our communities, trying to develop some of these solutions that are defined. Uh, I would like to mention two of them. The first, the sorry, the reduction of the vulnerability, and because it gives us a very good self-protection capability for our owners, for all the stakeholders. And then on the pre-planning phase, the negotiation of the solutions and try to define some scenarios that we will manage next time and start to pre-planning the solution to those scenarios. And there is another kind of scenarios in the final project that they are defined as multi-agency and multi-leadership environment. And again, from our point of view as a fire and rescue service that we are dealing with these emergency scenarios, there are two important questions here. One is the interagency framework. It's obvious that this is a framework that we have to, to contribute and to improve this interagency work, and also the decision making process during these emergency scenarios, complex scenarios, where there are a lot of little incidents inside the complex incident, and where the firefighter that is on the street, on the track, or the policeman that is on the street, or the civil protection leader that is on the street there in that place, have to take decisions and have to solve problems. And we have to give them a framework, an incident command framework from this point of view. Then this is what we have in front. We arrive in this kind of scenarios where people trying to get out the place. We, as a first responder, we are trying to enter in safe conditions, and there are a lot of problems and issues and questions to solve and to give answers and to organize. And this picture for me is a good picture to explain the chaos that are in those incidents. And obviously, if we can learn and we can share our knowledge with all the community and obviously with our society and our policymakers, we could improve and be more well prepared for the next time. Then this is as a firefighter, this is how we are learning from real incidents. Now I will just to show four past forest fires that were in this community scenarios, in these WUI scenarios, and which kind of in every time which kind of lessons learned we have collected and we collect in reports. So this is public information, and this is something that is here on the web, and you can find and read and share it, of course. More or less 20 years ago, we start to deal with the problem of the firefighters as decision makers and commanders as managers of the emergency. And this is something that for me, for our understanding, is very crucial question. And obviously the dilemma of the confinement versus evacuation. Evacuation are safe, is a good solution if you have time and you can be sure that the evacuated route is safe. But if you have not enough time, or if you can't provide this security to our citizens that are moving from a safe place that is a house to another place that you don't know about its safety, is something that is a very difficult issue to deal with. Then in 2007, we learned a lot about the response phase, about the sectorization, not only in communications, also in the functionalities of the incident command system that we are applying as a fire and rescue service. This is something that it's again crucial because it means that you need trained people and an incident command system structure that allow them to well, take decisions under an umbrella, under a strategy that you can share with all your personnel. But the decisions, the little decisions that are on field, you have to let them to do, and be sure that some of them could be mistakes, but obviously mistakes are in all the scale of the incident command system hierarchy. Then in 2012 in Legion Care Fire, we learn a lot with other topics. Fuel management in a landscape scale, not in the garden, not only the vegetation next to the community, also in landscape, and again with the simultaneously. And then in Vallerana Fire, what we learn a lot is about the need of an interagency framework. Not only for the response, we need this in the prevention and the preparedness phase, and obviously the prevention and the preparedness phase is related with the how we will respond to that emergency. So it's related to. Then these are the main important fires where we have collected some lessons learned. Obviously, there are other examples, but well, it's just to give you an example. Nowadays, current developments, I put in this presentation for the main developments that we are working on. The first one that I would like to mention is about the field treatment. Obviously, we have a problem when a forest fire spread through the community because it's something that for us as a fire suppression agency that we have our standard operations, something that we have to develop different career of operations and different kind of operations. So it's a critical point for us. And as a society in Catalonia from 1994 and the past 20 years, we have improved our law and all the policymakers they are aware of the impacts and the problem of this kind of scenarios. And nowadays we are working through an European project, the Cooper-M project, and also with our colleagues from University Polytechnica of Catalonia, ELSA, try to develop some of the technical questions. One is try to give some advices to policymakers and owners, like the garden management guideline or, for example, try to get a good dimension of this protection strip that is around the community, depending on the design and fire behavior that we can expect from that landscape. The fire type and the fire behavior and the fire spread of that fire type is something that we have to include in the designing of our protection strips of our communities, because it's not the same impact wind-driven fire than a topographical one. So it's something that we have to include in this preparedness and phase. And then also there is another research topic that is on the building materials, and give a relation between the vulnerability of the buildings, do their architectonic type, how they have the windows or the doors or these kinds of building characteristics, because we need the give resistance to our buildings, because one of the key questions for us is the self-protection of the people. We need resistant buildings to keep people there in a safety way, because if we have people in these safe places into the houses, for us as a emergency management organization, it's a very good point that have a more comfortable scenario to deal with. Then the second step is training, specific training. We have been working in train all our people, from firefighters to the high commanders, because of these challenges that we have with this kind of incident command system adaptation, with this the change from the command and control to the mission and command, and then we have to train and our people, and we have already done, and this is something that we have we have been working in this, and in the current incident that we are looking how they are working in this framework, and this is a very good and positive news for us. Some of the challenges, some of the things and the concept that we have changed are in this presentation. We are used to work with fire suppression operations in an offensive concept. Then when we have to protect the vulnerable elements like buildings, this is something that we have to relearn again, because and how manage with these tools and the best way to use them. And then there are some key questions when we are trying to protect the community. Is about the position, depending on the expected impact of the first fire on that community, depending on obviously their landscape, and select the best way to do these operations. As I already said, there is a change in or an adaptation of the incident command system, because we need to put in a lower levels the decision-making process and do these decisions in the same strategical framework. So this is something that we have been working on past years, and we are still working in this, of course. There are some key messages that we send to our firefighters that are working there: be autonomous, keep your own responsibility capacity for the worst scenario. There are incidents that are, well, that are not critical, but there are also other incidents that could evolve to a critical ones, and we have to be ready for that critical incidents. We cannot say, oh, I have no water in my track because I've been working in this garden and now the fire is into my house and I have no water to stop this fire into the house. So this is something that we have to keep in mind every time that we are working in these complex scenarios. And we are applying here the same operational concept that we have working when we have for example, a traffic accident with a lot of people, and we have to do this the selection of which is the first one to be to attend, and then this triage, and how I can prioritize which one, and then which operations give me as a first responder more capacity, more capacity to deal with this kind of simultaneously and this kind of complex scenarios. Also, to be autonomous, of course, we cannot spend all the time in doing one thing. We have to stabilize as soon as possible that chaos. And stabilize it is different than control and extinguish all fires. And this is something that we have to work with, this difference of the meaning and the operations. And obviously there are tactical decisions under this emergency umbrella with not only one strategy that give you the framework to operate in. The third one is, well, the multi-agency planning approach. We have to share our data, our knowledge with our colleagues that are working on the preparedness and the prevention. These three phases are related, are the same cycle. Of course, the detection, of course, the restoration, but in this case of communities, of wild and urban interface scenarios are key phases, and this interagency sharing this database and this work that include all the approaches and all the stakeholders is very important. And the end, because the guidelines, the decisions, the planning that you could do if you have all the community involved, in this community engagement concept is a very strong, a very powerful results of your work in this planning. Well, there are different kind of outcomes of these meetings, as for example, how can we prepare our operations and how can we expect the spread pattern through this community of the fire in this kind of, in the different fire types that we can expect. And then the fourth and the last one that I would like to show today is well, at the end, the risk awareness and the communication. We have to improve as a society our risk tolerance and our resilience. Our communities, they have to be ready for the next time that the fire will appear on the landscape, because it will be again, and then we have to be prepared, and not only in local levels, not only in local communities. For us, it's very important be on our TV, prime time programs, and explaining directly which is the problem that we have in front of us, and we have to deal, and we need the community, we need the self-protection in our communities. We need the responsibility of all the society, each one in this at its level, but at the end is something that affect all the society, not only those communities that are in this kind of landscapes. And then there is a key step here, that they are the journalists, the media, because we need them to be sure that the message and the information are spread in a good way, because if not, the misunderstandings and the fake news there are something that is very bad for our resilient societies. So we need to invest, we need to train all those persons that are in this information flow in our communities. And well, that's all. That's all I want to share to help and to improve knowledge of the reality of this kind of emergencies in these scenarios. So thank you very much, and I hope that it could be useful for you. And obviously, this is public information from the Catalan government, so it's free and on the web. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Edgar, for your talk and your messages. There is plenty of questions in our chat. So if you want, you can stop sharing your screen, okay, so that the audience would have the opportunity to see you wider, right? So there is a nice discussion in the chat. I'll try to summarize a little bit the messages and the comments that are being written. The first comment is about the reduction of the vulnerability that you have just talked at your very beginning of the presentation. So you have asked, or you have talked about the need to reduce vulnerability in these WUI scenarios, right? The question is about the scale of reducing this vulnerability. Do you have different recipes of how to reduce vulnerability in the different scales? Or when you talk about reducing vulnerability, at which scale are you referring? Are you talking about the micro scale, let's say the homeowner scale, as we are dealing in the WUIVIEW project, or were you referring to broader scales?
I was referring at landscape scale, because for me the problem is not there is one house burning. Obviously for that owner will be a very important thing, but for me as emergency management service, the problem is having thousands or hundreds of houses burning at the same time. Then for me the key question is start from the landscape, and if we have a safety landscape, we will develop security operations, and then obviously all those communities that are inside this safety landscape, their level of the hazard will be less, and then their self-protection tools or safe protection changes on their houses to protect themselves will be in a better scenario. So for me, the key question is the landscape scale.
Mm-hmm. Right. There is, as I said, a nice discussion about the dilemma, as you put it, of evacuation versus sheltering in place, right? So let me write you the different questions and comments about that issue so that you can provide us with your own thoughts and your own ideas of how to deal with this dilemma. So there's one question in the chat which says that, what do you think are the minimum requirements for shelter in place, according to your experience? Another question about this topic is evacuation always recommended if there is time enough? Another comment related to this subject is, if a homeowner is physically and mentally fit and his home is well maintained, shouldn't be encouraged to stay and defend his property or even help the neighbors? And related to that comment, another viewer says, well, who is making this assessment in a Dantesque incident? Who has the skills to do that screening? It is sure that there is, pros and cons for evacuation and for sheltering in place. Can you share with us your thoughts about those different strategies?
I think that is like the soccer or the football, European football. Everybody have their own idea, their own, obviously, knowledge and their own proposals. At the end, I can only talk through my experience here in Catalonia. We have no any death in any house, in the house. All the deaths that we have had in Catalonia are on the road, moving or walking, but not inside houses. Obviously, if the first critical point is the house safety? Yes, okay. So if you have, because your houses are more or less safeties, for us, this is the best first option. The best first option is keep the people into their houses. And then, because evacuation is a very big and complex problem itself, you have to be sure that you have time, and you have to be sure that nobody is on your community when you are take off all the people. And you cannot be sure never that nobody is into that community, then you will not defend. So at the end, you have to be there to protect those houses, and you cannot attend all the little incidents that are in every garden of each house. But if you have people there after the front of the fire cross the community, all those citizens can be sure that their gardens are okay, and they can suppress their little fires that they have in their garden. And this is something that help you as emergency management system. Then, if your houses are more or less safety, for us, the first option always is shelter in your house. But which is this level? So at the end, here in Mediterranean areas in Europe, most of our houses are built with kind of materials that have resistance, and then we can deal with this option. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if the houses are not safe, so you have to evacuate your communities. So at the end is your landscape, and who will say you how to proceed. And most of the deaths are not for the flames, are from the smoke and the heat of this air. So if you can stay in a house with more or less a good isolation of the temperature and this smoke, you can resist perfectly.
Mm-hmm. This is pretty much in accordance with one of the comments that is written here in the chat, according to the discussion that we were having about scales, about how to protect or how to have our homes in good condition so that it can be used as shelters. Because one of the comments here is that if you decrease the vulnerability at the plot scale, you can then focus on fire at the landscape scale. So I guess that, you know, all the scales are related, meaning that if you have a very nice and good prepared community, then your job, Edgar, at the landscape scale is going to be easier because you won't have to pay that much of attention at the community level.
Yeah, of course, this is obvious. This is, yeah, I agree with this. But the question that at the end is, as I think another question arises, that this topic is about the train our owners, because be into a house that there is a fire that is affecting that community, the noise, the heat, you have to train people to use their house as a shelter, not only in the prevention, also during the response. And this kind of training is a very difficult thing to do because the risk awareness is not well spread in our communities. People think that, well, this is something of other village, other places, but not in my community. And this kind of misunderstanding of their exposure is something that, for me, is something that we have to invest and to improve the next years. Mm-hmm. The risk awareness.
Right. In relation to that topic, to that idea, there is also one question in here, which is some ideas to improve people's involvement in WUI fires. To share knowledge is enough. So what type of actions would you try to put in place for communities involvement and community awareness increase?
Well, this is something that is, I have no a clear solution. There are a lot of people, a lot of fire services, a lot of academies, a lot of research centers that are working in this question. But if a public servant, as a policeman, as a firefighter, as a civil protection volunteer, explain directly to the community and can show the effects, the impacts of this kind of severity, some of those citizens will be aware of the risk. And at the end, this is something that, I don't know, this is like more or less like the COVID. That is something that at the beginning, nobody believed that could happen in my community. And now we are looking that, well, it's into our communities. But I need to see the COVID on my family to be sure that is in my community. So at the end, I think that this could be the same. This is a cultural approach. We need we need knowledge from how the human brain works, because it's something that we cannot solve only from technical part or from the research part. We need to develop some new methodologies to explain this problem and this exposure, the vulnerability. And I'm sorry, but I don't have a question. There are a lot of examples, and you can find in a lot of European projects, a lot of communities, and the Fire Smart communities are a lot of examples into the world. But I think that all of them, we have the same problem. How can impact on all the community, not only on those that are prepared to be impacted.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are observing also those differences that you were saying in terms of cultural approaches to risk awareness in our WUIVIEW project itself, because as you are aware, we are in our consortium, we have partners from Scandinavia, from Sweden, and the other partners are from the Mediterranean countries. And it's very, very different the way the way in which the Scandinavia approach the risk and manage risk in terms of education to people. Yeah. So those differences, indeed, they exist. Yeah, that's right. We have another question regarding another issue that you have raised, which is the coordination between agencies, the interagency framework. You have mentioned that, and the question is how we manage the coordination between the different agencies involved in prevention and extinction to protect and secure WUI zones. Do you think we need to improve it? How? I was also thinking about that when you just did your presentation, because one basic thing, which is data platforms, to have all the information shared by all the agencies that have to work in the field and have to do prevention and protection. How good we are in this moment to get all the agencies working together?
Depending on each society, there are places that there are very good engagement, and there are places that not yet, but obviously it is the future, because we as a public servant, we have to work with this efficiency way, and we have to work coordinately. But of course, coordinately implies that everyone has to assume their responsibility, the control of the risk of each agency, and we have to talk with criteria and to plan obviously with criteria. But in this interagency work, we need to be sure that all of us, we are working in the same way and not trying to keep their own objectives of each agency. I think that this is something that we are working on, and this is something that is the future, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe one of the good examples is how you guys are cooperating at regional level in Girona with prevention agencies and with the fire agency as well. But I guess that it's also a problem of scales, right? Because that coordination has to be also not only at local level, but scale up to national levels and have all the agencies somehow coordinated. I have also some questions that have not been put by our audience, but I would like to ask you about the operational tools that you use when you have to deal and when you have to fight against fires at the WUI. What type of tools you have? Are the tools that you have good enough for your business? What type of tools would you need and would you ask for to be developed to deal better and to manage better an emergency in a WUI fire? I'm talking about simulators. You talked about, for instance, evacuation. So you just said that if the evacuation route is not safe, of course, you shouldn't put your people in that route. But are you using evacuation simulators, or would you like to have one of those tools available? What type of simulations or operational tools you use and you would like to use in the future?
I only can speak from my agency because and my experience.
I'm asking about the Catalan Fire and Rescue Service because
and from Catalonia scenario.
Yeah, let me tell the audience that the Catalan Fire Rescue Service is a very nice example of a good performing fire agency, and so I guess that it's a model to follow for many agencies around Europe.
Model, I don't know. We have our pros and cons, obviously, as everybody. But no, at the end is what they want to say is that we have tools to manage our resources, geolocalization and radio tetra, and we are using the European tools like Copernicus, Sentinels, like the EFIS tools, and we are working always with our colleagues in other parts of Europe, exchanging lessons learned, exchanging challenges, and trying to share our skills, our capabilities. Then, as you asked me, taking all this into account, we have we use the simulators only on the planning, in the pre-planning phase, and this is used more or less from the civil protection point of view, because they are working on this prevention and preparedness phase. Also in the forest service, when we are talking about forest fires and all the management of with these forest fires incidents. And during the response, what we are using is the same tools that we have for all the incidents, but we have changed our methodology. We have changed our, I try to explain in this adaptation of the incident command system and how the decisions have to be taken. And then the best tool in this kind of scenarios is the human factor tool. This is the key point, because when you are talking with a citizen that you are trying to explain if his house will burn or not, you need to be very assertive. You need to be to develop all your skills on human factor. Then, and also to organize and to manage your own resources, because you are working in a scenario that simultaneously you cannot attend all the incidents that you want to attend, so you have to prioritize. And then this is something that for us implies pros and cons. And then, so the best tool is the training on human factors, of course, and new methodologies, because this is my opinion, but what I have been learning from my bosses and my teachers in the firefighter school is you have to work as you train and train as you work. I cannot implement new tools only in that little incidents, because I have to be very well trained. And so we, the Catalan Fire Rescue Service, we prefer invest on training our firefighters in how can they take these decisions and in the human factor, because in the technological level, more or less, we have the minimum tools to manage our resources. So in this case, we are more or less focusing on this human factor and methodologies,
Right.
not tools as a technical solutions.
Right. I guess that the state of the art in terms of what those tools, what current tools are able to provide you are not enough for the problems that you guys have, like those related to human behavior and to human factor. I guess that we have time for one more question, Edgar. If you, it's just 5 to 5, so we'll take a last question in order to make the webinar in 1 hour. The last question deals with the problem that we haven't talked about, but it's also a very important problem when we are dealing with WUI fires, which is spot fires. The question is about self-protection. What happens with the spot fires that are created by the fire brands, and what would you recommend to homeowners when there is those fire brands showers onto the communities? Is this a typical situation here in the Mediterranean? Because we have just seen very nasty images coming from, for instance, from California or coming from Australia, where the fire brand showers are just massive. Maybe we don't have that massive problem in here, but basically pretty much all firefighters involve, wildfires involve fire brand showers. So what would you recommend to homeowners when there is that fire brand shower onto the communities?
Yeah, the spot is you can observe spots in every little fire, because it depends on the type of the fuel and its availability. So spot is something that occur commonly, but I think that the image that you are talking Two is about the extreme wildfires that we have seen. That is when the smoke column, the smoke plume fall across 10, 15, 20 kilometers. This is not the normal spot fire. This is a plume that is fall on the land. And then this is another scenario. These are another reality. It's the new reality and the future reality. But for the owners, at the end, if you have your house in a safety way, with clean, with no branches near your windows, and more or less your garden is more or less fire resistant garden, you will be safe into your house. And of course, if there is a spot because of it's a large fire or it's a common fire or because it's an extreme wildfire, the fire is fire at the end, and your house can burn in a small fire also. So at the end, the main recommendation is keep clean your house and keep safe your house, and then you could be sheltered in, and you will be there during the fire, and after the fire you will save your house yourself. So this self-protection approach for us is very important, but this is the owner responsibility, and this is something that impact in each of us. So this is the key question. Again, the human factor.
Regarding firebrands, there are two more comments in our chat. One is about the landscapes in which you have observed those complex fires with firebrand showers. I guess that you have somehow answered this, because you have talked about when the plume is collapsing, those landscapes or those type of fires leading to a full collapse of a plume, then that leads to a firebrand shower. So that's this is one of the comments of our audience, and the other one is a comment which says that firebrands can indeed ignite houses directly without creating spot fires. Meaning that, of course, when houses are vulnerable, when houses are made of combustible materials, when there is firebrand shower, those can ignite the houses.
I don't know if I understand correctly this last part, because at the end,
yeah, that was
a little spot can burn a house like the big one. So this is not a matter of the dimension. Is a question of the vulnerability of your house.
All right. Well, I guess that it's just about 5 o'clock, so we should be closing that session. Thank you, Edgar, very much for your time. Thank you for your questions and comments, for sharing your knowledge and your experience with us. So yeah, please stay tuned, and I hope to reach you all next Wednesday, again at 16 hours CET. And this time it's going to be with David Caballero from the Pau Costa Foundation, talking about the concepts and methods for preventing planning and at the property level. So that all those methods that we've been developing in the WUIVIEW project, we'll try to show those through the webinar with David. Thanks again, Edgar, and thanks all people who is watching us and following us through our YouTube channel. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you, and see you soon.